Hello, Tim. Always a pleasure to hear your point of view. However, I believe you misunderstood some things, and perhaps took some parts of the philosophy out of context. You decided to add on to the definition I gave for indulgence. However, in my video, I stated that the three concepts, indulgence, abstinence, and compulsion, as well as their definitions, were to be taken in context with the philosophy. The added definition that you gave for indulgence was roughly how I was describing compulsion, which would be indulging without the guidance of self-control. Then you went on to declare a problem with indulgence as including indulgence for pedophiles and people sexually attracted to animals. However, you missed the "so long as it does not infringe upon others." Children cannot give rational consent, as is obvious, and therefore to advance on them sexually would be infringing upon them. That same concept applies to animals. An animal cannot give consent, so sexually abusing it would definitely be infringing upon it. The seventh Satanic statement does indeed state that we are the most vicious animal of them all, but this is due to the most obvious reasons. All of the wars, all of the bigotry, etc. That statement is not there as a part of our philosophy. It is more so there to point out an obvious fact as well as take a stab at the hypocrisy of the religious, who would claim we are divine. We are, in a sense, just animals due to evolution. The difference between us and animals is chiefly our cognitive ability. You see, we Satanists are indulgent in our nature. A part of that nature is our cognitive ability. We cannot say we are animals by nature, and then deny our nature. That is where self-control and responsibility to the responsible comes into play. In fact, this part of our nature is very important to the Satanist. We strive to be rational, intelligent and responsible human beings. You went on to talk about the rules of the earth, but I do not think you understood neither their nature nor the nature of Satanism when talking on this topic. You see, we Satanists do not convert to Satanism. We recognize ourselves in the philosophy, and thus adopt the title for ourselves. In other words, we do not strive to follow the philosophy. The philosophy simply matches us and the way we already thought. Satanism is a tool for putting things into perspective in a sense. We do not stick to the rules, as you put it. The rules are just things we as individuals naturally follow, as well as followed, before we became Satanists. As for our responsibility to the responsible, let me explain that. There are two instances that dictate who, or what, makes the call on responsibility. The first is if you indulge in any irresponsible manner, the consequences are yours to bear. You are responsible, so now you must face the consequences of your actions. Counterproductive pride, one of the satanic sins, is an example of this. Another would be obesity. If you irresponsibly indulge in lust, then the disease you get from having sex with questionable partners is your consequence to bear. So, in this sense, responsibility to the responsible is a natural flow of things. If you hit someone, expect to be hit back. The next would be in legal sense. If you break a law, responsibility to the responsible. If you murder somebody, be prepared to suffer the death penalty. So it is a legal matter in our philosophy as well. We are not anarchist and value a government and legal system. Without one, everything would be up in flames. Then how much enjoyment could we get out of life? When you went on to abstinence, you continued to list irresponsible indulgence and compulsion as your main argument of making indulgence out to be worse than abstinence. You stated, "Do not sin in your anger." We state, "Do not do anything unlawful in your anger, as that would be a compulsion." Assault and murder are not smiled upon by our philosophy. Satanic rituals are there for emotional venting. Indulge in your anger in an intelligently controlled setting, and thus vent the negative emotions out. Rape and murder. as already explained in the satanic indulgence video, are confusions that abstinence can lead up to. Now on to you talking about my claims of abstinence leading to stress and frustration, thus leading to physical and mental ailments, as well as illness. This is not necessarily a satanic concept. This is a psychological one. Do not forget that I am going to be majoring in psychology. I study that, and my mind is gauged, and understanding how the mind in general works. Anything that can affect our psychology directly can indirectly affect our physical bodies. That is a proven fact. As for bringing the Christians into it, Tim, you know you are not the typical Christian. Many Christians do in fact hold that they have some sort of moral high ground, and bring our indulgence in carnality to be an evil act. Thus, they claim a higher morality for abstaining from what we do not. You moved on to compulsion. You keep forgetting how we Satanists indulge. Responsible indulgence, not compulsion in things. Compulsion is a negative form of indulgence in which there is no self-control. And yes, abstaining from too much for too long can in fact bring about an eventual snapping effect. The Columbine killers were two kids that were forced to abstain, as well as had emotional and psychological problems. The video was addressing our philosophy. It did not cover all psychological problems such as depression and anger issues to a point of being problematic. Abstinence is a deliberate self-denial for the sake of denying it, often over moral fixations. Self-control deals with not compulsing, and with not indulging in the wrong thing at the wrong time. It is not a set-in-stone self-denial. It is a controlled and situationally applied self-denial, which abstinence is not, as abstinence is a complete self-denial. What is wrong with being human and acting like it? We are biologically animals, yes, but we celebrate our natural human nature, which is indeed animalistic to a degree. But, once again, a part of that nature is our cognitive ability. Why would we ignore such a thing? Gluttony is something that can be indulged in instead of fasting, but self-control deems you either do not indulge to the point of negative consequences, or at least exercise to work it off. If you indulge in gluttony, you should indulge in pride, and keep yourself in shape as well. The 7 carnal desires, labeled as deadly sins, are balancing factors, if you think about it. One final note on the nature of abstinence. It is not always a choice. Or rather, it is not necessarily a self-denial, but a denial period. This can lead up to an eventual compulsion. Not to mention, when describing killers and rapists, you ignored all of the emotional problems they have and trying to label their actions as indulgence. This is not an accurate depiction of indulgence without infringing on others, now is it? Lastly, I will give you that example you asked for via a scenario. There is an emotionally disturbed bully in a school. He picks on a kid often. This kid never says anything back. He never even fights him. He abstains from doing anything bad against the bully and tries to forgive him like he has been taught to do. One day, the bully just goes too far. The kid cannot take it anymore, and via compulsion, gives in to what has built up to become an irresistible urge. The bully is now dead in the bathroom, and the kid is in some serious trouble. This is an extreme, and most situations are not such. But extreme examples usually help to get the point across. In closing, Tim, I think you took a lot of definitions and words out of context, as I clearly stated that all should be judged in context with the philosophy in the video. Context is very important in Satanism. If you cannot judge each part as such, you will never understand Satanism. Gestalt is very important. Nice to have the dialogue with you, Tim. Hope you are